How's it going? So I've downloaded this data online, which is US quarterly milk production and related data. And I want to clean it up and get it pivot table ready. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to accomplish that. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of functions in Google Sheets. So the first thing I need to do here, I need to make sure that, see, if I do pivot table and I want to do some pivoting by year, I need each one of these rows to have the year. So this should say 1998 4 times here, and then we would have 1999 over here and 2000 over here, and so on. So I'm going to accomplish this using a function called IFS. So I'm going to expand this column to make this easier to type. So I'm going to start with my equal sign, and the function I'm going to use is IFS, which is a multiple if conditions function. So the first thing I'm going to check, so as I'm looking at this data, and I possibly should have made this a little larger like this. Okay, so that's our ifs function. So the first thing I want to check is that when I'm looking at this, so when do I have to put 1999 or 1998? That's when these rows that I'm highlighting, right? Let me get out of this for a second. So it's going to be for only these rows that have something in them. So for example, here I don't want to put 1998 nor I want over here. So it seems like every place where I want to have like 2000 or 1999 or whatever is when I have some number here on the right. So I can use that in my advantage. So I'm going to start with my ifs function, and I'm going to say that I'm going to check if the cell to the right of this function is blank. I'm going to do that by using a function called ISBLANK, which checks if a cell is blank. If it is blank, it's going to return true. So I'm going to ask, is this cell right next to me blank? And when it's blank, meaning if I were in row 7, it would say true, but right now it's going to say false because it's not blank. So let's think about what's going to happen if it's blank. So if we're in row 7 or row 13 and it's blank, what do we want to put here? Nothing when it's blank. So I'm going to do comma, and I'm going to say, let's just do double quotes, leave it pretty much empty. So that's the first thing we're going to check. So if it's empty, let's just leave it empty. So the second thing, comma, is going to be in our ifs function is our second condition. So the ifs function is like you chain conditions, and whichever one the first true argument on the left is met, that's the one that's going to happen. So currently it's going to check if it's blank, and if it's blank, it's going to automatically do this, and it's going to ignore every other condition. Now, if it's false, then it's going to move on to the second one and check the second one, and so on. If the second one meets true, then it's going to do the second one, and it's going to ignore all the rest of them. But if it's false, it's going to move on to the third condition, and so on. That's how ifs function works. So the second one I'm going to check if I'm here, I check the blank. So what if I'm here in the current cell that I'm in, right? Then I want to put this 1998 from this cell on top here. But I only want that to happen if this is the first record in this row. So meaning that, see, under 1998, it's the first this month or quarter value. So I can do that by looking. So usually the way I can find out if this is 1998, usually this cell on the right, and the top right is blank. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say is blank. I'm going to check if this cell that's on the right and one cell above, if that's blank, then what do we want to do? In that case, we want this to pick up this number, 1998. So when this is blank, and again, it's first going to check for this one. Is the current row blank? If it's not blank, then the next thing we're going to check if the one that's to the right and one cell above is blank. And if it's blank, we will want to have this 1998 in there. So I'm going to do another comma. The next one is what happens in all the other cases, right? So what I'm going to say, so what's the next thing I'm going to check? So first of all, let's understand what's going to happen. So far I'm just going to close this, hit enter. That's my 1998. So that works for this. I'm going to try to drag this down to see what happens. So you can see how we here get not available, not available, not available, because it didn't match any of those conditions. This one works because this one is blank and it leaves it blank, which is what we said. Now the ones we didn't handle is this NA is in the middle. So when I'm in this cell right below, what do I want it to be when it's NA? I want it to be equal to the same thing that's here above. Okay, so I'm going to go back again. When we fix something, we always check the formula above. Now, here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the third argument. So again, we should check a logical test that should return true or false. So the next thing, so what am I checking next thing? What I said is that I don't want to particularly check for something. I just want to say if it's neither the first one nor the second one, which we already checked, in all the other cases, I want to just let's look what's one cell above and put that in. Now, the way I'm going to do that, instead of creating a logical test, what logical test usually returns is true or false. Now, what I'm going to do is just type true, which is going to be the return value that I need. So meaning that if it didn't do the first case, it didn't do the second case, then in all the rest, which will be like an else statement, everything else should be this. So that's going to be one cell above the cell that I'm in. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go click on this and I'm going to drag this down. So, whoops. It doesn't matter. I can even go a little longer here. So that seems to work. See, 1998, beautiful. 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and so on. So that works great. Now, what I did notice that I don't like here is that, see, if you look here, this is aligned to the left, which means it looks at this number, 2000, as a text, not as a number. So I want to correct that. I want to make sure that everything is looked at as a number, which I know it's not because it's aligned to the left right now. So there is a trick you can use to do that. So when you have a text that looks like a number and you want to convert it to text, you can simply add 0 to it, and that will make it actually number. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say the first one is checking blank, leaving it blank, has nothing to do with it. The second one we said let's check here, and if it's empty, we're gonna put this number over there, which is this A7. Now that number turns out sometimes it's text, it's not a number. We want to convert it to a number. So what I'm going to do, instead of saying A7, I'm gonna say let's do A7 plus, whoops, this jumped around. This is weird. A7 plus 0. So again, you can see 1998 plus 0 is 1998. Now what you're going to notice, if I drag this down, see this one also became a number because we're adding 0 to a text number and it converts it to an actual number. So again, I'm going to drag this down and maybe go a little further down. That's fine. So there it is. Now we have all the column of numbers as we needed. Now I don't really need to keep this formula, so what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to copy and right click and paste special values only, and this way it's going to be just as if somebody typed it in. So that's that. So the second thing I need to do is to create a label here on top for each column, and what I'm going to do first, I'm going to insert one row above here, and that's where I'm going to create it. So what I want the labels to say, I want it to be a combination of a few things. So for a pivot table, we just need one row as the label column. We can't have multiple like separations like that. That's not going to work for us. So what I want to have something that will combine all of these together as one. So this should be replacement cow price $2 as one string. So I'm gonna go here. Actually, I'm gonna go do it over here. It's probably gonna be easier. And I'm gonna use a function called join. So the first argument in our join is for basically concatenating text. In a way, you just join different pieces of text together, create a new piece of text. But what it does, it can put a character in between those different pieces of text. So I want to join these different cells together. So what I want to put in the middle of them. So I'm going to add a space. And since it's a text, it's going to be quote space quote, comma. And then you have to provide an array of things you want to join. So I'm going to say, let's just join everything starting from here through here. Just like that. Now we're gonna have this blank thing. Now I could have done like this and comma this, but I'm too lazy. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight all of that. Close this function, hit enter. Now you can see how we got replacement cow price dollars. Now what we're gonna find out is that because see after the 2 we have this empty row, we have this extra space in here. So to take care of those spaces, I'm going to use a function called trim, which removes our extra spaces. So there it is. So that's that. Now I'm going to just drag this to the left. Here we are. So that should be this. To make this readable, let's just go ahead and highlight this. I'm going to go under format, text wrapping, wrap. Perfect. The only one that's not great pretty much is this one over here. But what I'm going to do again, I'm going to simply just copy this, paste values only, and simply just go in and delete this part that I don't want. So that's going to be my labels. Now this one is missing, so I'll just go ahead and type years, because that's the one we did. Now at this point, because these are all values, I'm going to highlight all of this on top, delete those rows. Now the next thing I want to do is get rid of all this blanks in the middle. Get rid of this one, which is 1998 and blank. And I also don't need this aggregates, which is like your average or total, right? Because we can do those aggregates in our pivot table. We just need the data. So the easiest way for me to do this, I'm going to simply just sort this data. And I'm going to sort this by a column that I think I'm going to have values. So I think this one, a lot of these are fine. So so long as the logic is that if I sort by values here, all the blanks are gonna just stay together in this row. So I can't do it by this because it's gonna do like this, although it could work because it's like 1998 is not gonna interfere with this text. But I also want to take this average or totals out of it, and that's a separate thing, I guess. So I'll go ahead and go under data, and I'm going to sort range, and I'm going to sort by G column because I can see that one. And data has headers, which is this top one is our headers. So I guess should have done that first. Hit sort. I can see how everything is nicely sorted. Now I can go ahead and delete all these rows of extra junk that we don't need. Right click, delete rows. Right, and finally some not available values apparently there. So, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I need to remove this average, stuff like that. So again, I can just sort this data for one more time. Now I can sort by this column. It has headers, year and quarter, sort. So what I don't need is this average and total stuff, because aggregates are gonna get in our way. Right click, delete. We get to pivoting, we don't want those. So there we have it. Now I can sort it by this, I guess, to make this nicer. And while we're on it, I'm gonna delete this extra column. We don't need those columns there. Control Shift right and down to highlight the data. Sort range, and let's sort as headers, and I'm gonna sort by years. So there is our data. Seems to be looking pretty good. The only ones that I don't like is this not available ones. So as to how we want to handle that, that's a whole different subject. So usually when you have not available values, there are a few ways of handling it. Now in this case, I could just use some sort of average for the year and just go with those, just because I guess that would make more sense than anything else in this case. So I'll just go ahead and type average, and I'll use the average of the past 4 months, I guess. So copy and paste values only. Now again, as to how you should handle this, completely different, varies depending on your situation. But in this particular case, I just decided to use the mean. Oh, went a little too far there. Copy. Now I could have done probably something better, but this should do. And apparently we have a couple of other NAs. We have more NAs. There it is. So, and in this case, again, not really sure. I guess I'm gonna keep the same logic. I'm gonna copy this cell and paste it over here. Copy and paste values only. And I believe all the NAs are now handled with our averages. Have our data. Should be ready for pivoting unless there is a mistype in one of these columns. And the way I can figure that out, so this seems like it's our quarters. So we should really have, what, 4 quarters. So I can check there are more if I use unique function. Highlight all this stuff, hit enter. So see, apparently it's not clean because I should only get like 4 quarters, but I get this January, March 3. So apparently this one, let's fix that. It seems to be accurate now. It's 4 of them. April, June, March. Alright, that's our quarters. So technically we could just assign a value to each quarter, like a number or something like that. So see, April, June. So let's actually go ahead and do it. I'm gonna insert a new column and call this quarter index. Now I'm gonna quickly make a VLookup table. I'll use unique function to get unique values out of this. I'm gonna say that from January through March, that's our first quarter, April to June, the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. That's gonna be my VLookup table. And I'll go ahead and create a quick VLookup function, look up this value, and looking up this range over here, F4 to lock it, comma, pick the values from the second column. It's sorted. So if you don't know about VLookup, which I have an entire series about VLookup, I've covered possibly pretty much anything you could want to do with VLOOKUPs in those videos. So go ahead and check that out. Double click to send it down, make sure it works, and then to make sure I don't keep a formula there, right click, paste special, values only. And now I don't need this anymore. Just go ahead and delete it. That's going to be our quarterly index. That should be a readily available data for pivoting. So later on we'll do a pivot table on this, but for now that should be the end of this video. I'll see you next time.